Competency 1B. Candidates can explain how students' first language proficiency and listening, speaking, reading, and writing transfers to and supports English language acquisition. This is a picture of language 1 transferring to language 2. And a student's knowledge of phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, and discourse in their own language can help them learn language 2 because they can see similarities and differences and apply them. Likewise, a teacher can help a student to see similarities and differences and scaffold in that way. Phonology would be the sounds. How are the sounds similar in language 1 and language 2, and how are they different? Syntax, how is the order, or is the order the same, or is the order different? For example, in English, adjectives come before the noun. In Spanish, they come after. Semantics. Semantics includes things like idioms and metaphors, and in translation, those can be very difficult for English language learners to understand. For example, it's raining cats and dogs, or break a leg. Morphology, word parts with meaning, things like prefixes and suffixes are morphemes, and understanding the meaning of those can be helpful when seeing that same prefix or suffix in another word. They can predict what the unknown word's meaning might be. Pragmatics deals with things like proximity between speakers or formal and informal. Discourse would be a conversation. When we have English language learners in class, we need to be aware of myths. Myth 1 is that children learn a second language easily and quickly. It's not quick, and it's actually very challenging to learn a second language. Myth 2, it is easier for younger students to learn a second language. It actually isn't. Sometimes younger students, they don't have the strategies in their first language to see grammatical patterns in their first language, the strategies that they would need to see it in their own language than to be able to transfer it to a second language. Myth 3, more time speeds up learning. Myth 4, students who speak English fluently have achieved English language proficiency. If a student is fluent in speaking, doesn't mean that they are also fluent in reading, writing, or listening. So, for example, in a high school class, if we had a student who speaks very fluent English, but we notice that they're having trouble comprehending text, they may need support in their first language to help scaffold meaning and the comprehension. And myth 5, all children learn in the same way. Not true. We need to have all kinds of strategies to reach all different kinds of learners. Things like authentic assessments, cooperative groups, scaffolds, bringing in interests, all the strategies to reach the diverse learners that we have in our classrooms today. So where do we go from here? So the challenge of educating diverse students effectively promotes needed educational reform at all levels and for all students. Put a picture of a bridge there for a couple of reasons. One, it's bridging to a future of an educational reform, a better educational system, but also the idea of bridging from home to school, because when we have English language learners in our classroom, the home can be understanding the culture at home and understanding how language is used at home can really help us as educators to know how to scaffold for our students to help bridge them to language 2. Here's our professor, Dr. Johnson, and this is from one of his articles. He was talking about funds of knowledge, and in this it says a critical component of a funds of knowledge approach not only demands that educators identify specific skills that are grounded in their students' cultural background knowledge, but that teachers must integrate these skills into classroom practices to scaffold academic language and literacy patterns. And that goes with what I was just saying in the last slide, is that as teachers, if we understand how language is used in the home or what the home culture is like, we can build on those to make language 2 more accessible to students and just to facilitate greater learning. And Dr. Johnson again, and he emphasizes that it's important to understand that our standardized tests that we have evaluate mainstream prescriptive literacy skills, and that we need to recognize that the linguistic strengths of culturally diverse students, but also that we really need to acknowledge that there's ingrained language ideologies and a mythical standard English. And he talks about that mythical standard in his Spanglish video that we watched, his TEDx video that was on YouTube that we watched about Spanglish. And, his point was, who decided that this is standard English? And I will end with something he wrote in one of his articles that goes with the 3 bullet points up above. He said, until we can do this, deficit orientations and academic underachievement will continue to unfold in public schools across the country.